We are at the special business meeting of the School Board of Indian River County. We are in the Joe N. Idolette building. I'm sure there's more here on my script. You're going to have to bear with me a minute because I am not usually the one to chair this meeting. So if I look like I'm reading a script, it's because I am. And I'm going to invite, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll invite Mrs. Berenborg to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are going to adopt the orders of the day. There is one item today on our action agenda, so I'm going to call for a meeting to adopt, motion to adopt the orders of the day. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Thank you. Mrs. Rosario, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Berenborg. Mrs. Rosario, do you want to speak to your motion?
No, ma'am. I'm just happy that we're able to move forward with this, and I look forward to great things to come.
Thank you. Mrs. Berenborg?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Justice?
No, thank you.
Can I call the vote on adopting the orders of the day? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Dr. Schiff, will Mrs. Rosario be joining us in video?
Yeah, she said, she earlier said that she would join us by video in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
We now have the portion of our meeting for citizen input. The public may offer comments by appearing in person. Such persons will be placed in areas outside the meeting room and invited to the meeting room at appropriate time while maintaining CDC requirements of social distancing, which is currently defined as not more than 50 individuals in a group and maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet per individual. The public may also offer comments by emailing comments to the following email address, which would have been received by 12 o'clock today, and will be provided to all school board members prior to the meeting and appended to the meeting minutes. The public is advised this email address will be used solely for obtaining public comments for the board meeting and should not be used for other purposes or questions. We have a number of people who wish to speak in person. I will call those, and then those who have written in will be read by Mrs. Maddox, correct? And Mrs. Millman, or just Mrs. Maddox? Okay. The first person for citizen input is Ms. Friedland, will be followed by Mrs. Notre Giacomo.
Notre Giacomo.
I know I'm not getting that right. I've seen it, but I can't pronounce it. Ms. Freeland? I'm sorry?
You're supposed to read them in the order they were received.
This was the order I received them, but I'll put you last if you prefer. Mrs., the word I can't say very well, Notre Giacomo? And then to be followed by Ms. Korleski.
Secretary.
Excuse me, ma'am. I thought my daughter was speaking. We were a little late because we had therapy, but they're not letting us sign in to speak. Can we still?
What's our rule on that?
It's the chair's decision.
We got here at 6:01.
It's the chair's decision.
Can you hear me all right?
Dr. Schiff, typically, the board policy says that individual reports prior to the commencement of the meeting. So that has been the past practice. Anyone who doesn't sign up before the commencement of the meeting is not allowed to record in. The chairman runs the meeting. So if there is a desire to grant exception for some reason, then as the chairman.
I'll allow it. It was 6:01.
Dr. Schiff, may I, for a moment?
Sure.
I have no problem if you'd like to allow this, as it is the pleasure of the chair to decide that. However, I do think it's important to recognize that lots of people have things going on in their lives. We did have a 12 p.m. deadline for email, and we do, there are people who would be trying to get here who may have turned around because they may not have been able to make it. So their input may not be heard because they thought we had a rule that we stood by. So just a warning about
I
that.
can appreciate that. They were here by 6:01, and
Fine.
as a doctor's appointment, as a medical necessity, I'll allow. But I'll need I need the form.
It's okay. I just think in practice, we have to be fair to everyone.
You're welcome.
We ready?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lamar Noter Giacomo. I live at 5082 4th Lane, Vero Beach. And I guess my question is, why are we still wearing masks? I think that we've based a lot of our decisions on fear instead of facts. And I think that although, yes, people have died from COVID and they die from many things, we had, for example, in 2018 and 2017, there were over 3,000 people who died from the flu. And we didn't shut down the economy. I think that the numbers have been inflated, as we saw that 32 labs in Florida were, some of them were at 100% rate for their COVID tests. So they acknowledged that their numbers were skewed. And it's really putting a lot of fear into people. But what I want to do is I want to spread facts and I want to spread hope. I don't know if anybody's heard, I gave this to your secretary, about the Zelenko protocol. But I'm just going to briefly go through a couple paragraphs here. But it says, newly published outpatient study finds that early use of zinc, hydroxychloroquine, and azithromycin is associated with less hospitalizations and death. This was put out July 15th, 2020. The study reports a survival rate of over 99% in patients with confirmed positive cases of COVID. So I'm happy to see diversity in the room. I love diversity, and I think that everyone should have a choice based on science and based on facts, not based on fear. For example, where's the science that says that people should be 6 feet apart, that's going to protect anybody from getting COVID? There is no science. There's no science to prove that masks protect anybody from getting the virus, or any other virus for that matter. I recently heard, I wish I could remember which doctor said it, the kids are more likely to get killed in a car accident on the way to school than they are to die from COVID. And yet we're requiring them to wear masks. So I also have this study here from Dr. Richard Bartlett. Dr. Richard Bartlett is a doctor in Texas. I'm not going to go through his qualifications, but I'll leave this with your secretary as well. And I'm going to tell a personal story. Mr. Lloyd, a 60-year-old attorney in Orange County, California, came down with the coronavirus. He reached a point after just a few days, he felt as if he was drowning and was coughing nonstop. He had seen a video of Dr. Bartlett explaining his treatment with budesonide. The doctors at the urgent care at first refused to prescribe it. They gave him albuterol. That didn't work so well, but he talked them into giving him budesonide, which is an inhaled steroid. I used it for my kids when they were little. They had chronic croup. No side effects, worked very well. And after 8 hours, he felt like he could breathe for the first time in days, and he's continued to improve since that.
Thank you.
Is that 3 minutes?
That was 3
Seemed like a
minutes,
very
yeah.
short time. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
That was 2 minutes.
Yep, that is the warning, that's the sound that goes off when it's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Kraleski? Kovleski, sorry, couldn't read it. And following Ms. Kovleski will be Mr. Allen. Or Ms. Allen, sorry, Ms. Allen. I am killing the names tonight, sorry.
Hello. First question is, how in the world did teachers and students survive H1N1, the swine flu, the RSV virus, without all of these unproven safety equipment that we're going to require of our teachers and or our children? There's zero peer-reviewed medical or scientific evidence that masks of any type, including N95, will block corona or any other virus droplets. There's no mask mandate for any citizen in Indian River County, Vero Beach, Sebastian, or our cities. You have not spent any money to research if masks will weaken immune systems or make children sicker, as many studies claim they will. OSHA requires mask studies and seriously limits the time employees can wear masks. Mask labels, even for specific masks like an N95 mask, specifically state they do not protect against COVID-19 or other viruses. So, where are your considerations for the immune systems and health of our children? Should children be mandated to what our county officials only highly recommend for the rest of the public? Highly recommend does not mean mandated. And what about your teachers? If they are afraid, then they need to stay home. If they're ill, they need to stay home. But I think this is more about the teachers than it is about the children, and that makes me very sad that we would possibly hurt our children to protect some older teachers, and that's what I'm told. I would request that you do not mandate children wear masks in school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Allen? And next will be Ms. Klenpeter?
Hello, my name is Chris Allen, and yes, it is Miss. Yeah, I want to say my son goes to Liberty Magnet, and I've been keeping up with what the school district has recommended. I was highly disappointed where it went initially from you don't have to wear masks unless they're tight packed, to where there's going to be masks in the hallways, and it's just I don't trust that that there may or may not be masks at all. How do I know that you're not going to change it again? Past the deadline last time when we had to submit our answers on whether we wanted, brick and mortar versus online school. Like, where does it stop? Are you just going to say, hey, every student has to wear a mask even when they're exercising? Well, did you hear about the story about a man, I think in China, was running with a mask on and his lung collapsed? He was healthy. And that's what happens with adults. What do you think is going to happen with kids? They don't know, to restrain themselves. You really think kids are going to stop touching their masks all day, that they have that kind of responsibility, where even adults don't do that? I've gone to a lot of places where every place you go, mask up, mask up. Nobody really keeps their distance either. And according to the WHO, they have their own potential harms and disadvantages, to where one of them is a false sense of security, leading to the lower adherence to other critical preventive measures like social distancing and hand hygiene. And I've seen even Facebook posts about, some places putting little plexiglasses on the kids' desks. Do you really think a kindergartner is going to be able to keep that clean? Like, I see my own house and the windows have little handprints on them from when my son was young. I see it at restaurants when I go out. There's also the increased risk of potential of self-contamination, because again, you manipulate the mask all the time, especially when they're young kids. The poor maintenance, the poor compliance of mask wearing, particularly in young children. And there's also, I wanted to make fact that why are masks coming up when in Indian River County, the cases have been going down. The percentage positive of people who are testing positive are lower. Yes, the average is 9%, but if you know math, the average is of all time. If you take the daily average, it's actually as low as 3%, at least yesterday when I looked at it. Today, there's only been 7 new cases, which is, I think, yesterday's date. Our deaths are getting lower. We had kind of a peak in July, but if you look at the Florida chart of deaths, it's going down. It's a downward trend. And I also wanted to say that I looked at, I guess, a light study with masks. Masks do stop spit from going forward, but it doesn't stop the airflow coming in and out, especially from the sides. And I've studied engineering, aerospace engineering, and the air is going to go through the path of least resistance, which is up and the side quicker. Thank you.
I'm just going to say, I received one more late one. I'm going to allow it because somebody made the effort to come, but this is the last one I'm accepting after the deadline. Ms. Klenpeter, how do I say that?
My name is Carolyn Kleinpeter, and I have children in the Indian River County Schools. And I allow them to go to school instead of homeschooling because I was trusting your judgment. Now, to put a mask on someone's face and have them rebreathe their CO2, the germs and toxins that are breathed out, and they're breathing it back in, causes a lot more immune system problems than you may not realize. And I'm here to let you know, I'm trusting you to make the right decision for my children. That's why I send them to school. You're there to teach. I teach my children at home also. But the pointing a laser at their head for thermometers, are you doing the thermometers? That I will totally disagree with. Now, the other thing is all the chemicals that you're spraying and you're cleaning with. They're going to be breathing their CO2, toxins, bacteria, and then they're going to go like this, lift up their mask, take a breath, and breathe in the toxins from the chemicals. And I do want to remind you that the state of Florida is the third largest human trafficking state in the nation. And all these children, it's not funny, all these children will have a mask and all you can see is their face. Elizabeth Smart was walking around many public places and she was a national face on television and nobody recognized her. So therefore, we send our kids to school for safety, and again, where is the safety? Who is accountable? I believe the school board of Indian River County will be accountable. And you need to make decisions based on the safety and health of our children. And my children are there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Gomez and Ms. Wilson, followed by Ms. Bogart.
All right, I'm going to speak fast, sorry. My name is Carrie Wilson. I have children that are going to go to public school for the first time this year. I seek to protect and vindicate fundamental liberties that citizens of the United States enjoy from government interference. The liberties protected by the Constitution are not conferred or granted by government to then be rescinded at the will and whims of government officials. First, this violates the Florida Constitution to fail to offer children a free public education. Imposing a requirement to receive that education that serves no rational basis violates this requirement. Second, in addition, offering an alternative as virtual education regimen that forces a parent to stay with a minor is an inadequate alternative that violates Article 9 of the Florida Constitution. Sorry, I have asthma. A virtual classroom is not a classroom, and children subject to a virtual education are receiving a separate and unequal education. See Brown versus Board of Education, 347 U.S. 483. Third, you're pushing a medical device onto students because they would need to be worn on kids that need to go to school. In addition, when a policy is instituted that requires minors to wear a mask, as is being done here, it meets the definition of a medical device. Such wearing of a device interferes with the parent's right to choose the medical decision and treatments for their minor children. In short, you do not have legal authority to order a medical device to be worn over a long period of time, 5 days a week, for the privilege of enjoying a free public education as defined by the Florida Constitution. Such medical devices do not meet the preconditions of requiring certain inoculations to attend school, nor are they proper definition of school clothing that schools may regulate. Fourth, this policy also violates numerous other provisions within the Florida Constitution. Chief among those rights and liberties are those found in Article 1 of the Florida Constitution. The policy as applied violates equal protection as found within the Florida Constitution, Articles 1 and 2, due process under 9, and the right of privacy under 23.25. I'll hand these to you if you want. Fifth, the superintendent of Indian River County is not a dictator where he may pass policy at fiat This official is subject to Florida laws concerning government being conducted in the Sunshine State. The process by which the adoption of the face mask policy by Indian River County violated multiple Florida statutes, Article 1 and 24B of the Florida Constitution, requires that all meetings of public entities to be in public and noticed. The policy was placed into effect with no notice, hearing, or publication of the law as of August. Indian River County may suggest that the requirement of the Florida Statute 286.0115 provides an exemption from public notice and participation in the case of an emergency. However, the nature of how this face mask policy was adopted without any public comment or open hearing and not scheduled to into effect until late August shows the need for such an action to avoid Florida constitutional requirements. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. For point of clarification, you were both on the same form, which is technically 3 minutes per form. Because you brought your daughter, because she's a child in our district, I'm going to allow this time, but for future reference and for anyone listening, it has to be on 2 separate forms.
Sorry, hers is very short. Go ahead. State your name.
Hi, my name is Sydney and I am 10. I am unable to wear a mask in school, and I think it is unfair to ask everyone to do the same thing when we are all not the same. I struggle with anxiety, panic attacks, along with ADD. When I put a mask on, it makes me feel sick, like I can't breathe. I had to go to school the other day to help my brother with his school supplies. The principal said we had to have a mask on. I put one on in 98-degree weather. I had a panic attack, and then I had my mom pull the car over on the way home so I could puke. I get nauseous. I want to graduate 5th grade this year, and now I am in public school that is supposed to help me with my IEP. There is going to be no help for me if you make me wear a mask. I don't think this is fair. I think if you had to walk a mile in my shoes, you could feel what I feel and think what I think like I think. But this is not a one shoe size fits all situation. Please don't do this to me. I deserve an equal education. I went to camp all summer with no mask and no social distancing with problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for coming out and speaking tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Bogart?
Good evening. I realize that you are charged with a difficult decision, but I doubt if each of you has reviewed all of the points of view, all mask studies, and all scientific literature explaining how viruses are spread and how one becomes infected. As such, how were you able to intelligently arrive at a decision when you didn't have all of the information necessary to make an informed decision? Aside from the lack of science proving the efficacy of masks, excuse me, you're setting children up for even more illnesses by requiring them to wear a mask. A child will tug and pull at their mask repeatedly throughout the day, thus transferring germs from their hands to their face repeatedly at a time when minimizing touching one's face and eyes should be limited. Additionally, masks restrict the flow of oxygen and increase carbon dioxide levels, thereby increasing the risk of developing fungal infections, increasing levels of bacteria on their mouth, face, and lungs, and impairing their immune function due to increased cortisol levels. Not to mention, it's highly unlikely that children will wear a clean mask every day, let alone throw out their mask each time they remove it and replace it with a clean one, as is necessary for proper PPE usage. As such, the mask will be nothing more than petri dishes, growing and spreading more germs than they may ever possibly prevent. There are so many other better options than masks, such as sanitizing air filtration systems, frequent hand washing, the use of face shields, the use of HOCl, hypochlorous acid, that can be used as a mist in classrooms and hallways, as well as on hands and faces. And unlike hand sanitizer, HOCl is non-toxic. Let me also mention an important fact that I'm sure that you're not aware of, and that is that PCR testing that's used to detect COVID is itself a failed testing methodology. and is rife with opportunity for error. The PCR tests that are currently being used are not even FDA approved. PCR testing was actually originally designed to sequence DNA. It was not designed as a diagnostic tool. So it appears you're making decisions about what is best for the children of Indian River County without all of the facts, without all of the information, and without parental input. So I implore you to please step back and reconsider what is truly best for our children and come up with less intrusive, less restrictive measures to ensure their physical health as well as their mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last one up is Ms. Freeland.
You're welcome. Good evening, School Board and Dr. Moore. I want to give you an update of sorts. As we see our neighboring counties create visions of what not to do for reopening schools, Dr. Moore, his staff, IRCEA, CWA have worked tirelessly to make a plan for opening schools. We have created a calm for our children, our babies, our staff, mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters in the middle of a storm of COVID. We have had some very positives this past 3 weeks. Teachers have been training. We have been planning, working collaboratively, safely, of course, with masks and distance. The air has been active, upbeat, and excited. Yes, there is work to be done, but it's getting done. We're almost there. I would like to say I understand that mankind has overcome and survived many plagues. In the process of those plagues, though, many mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and babies have died. I'd like to know who is going to tell those parents that their baby was chosen in the COVID lottery. Does it not make sense to err on the side of caution? Would you not want the surgeon who's doing the operation on you to wear a mask? There's a reason for that. We have not, in the Indian River County, taken away anybody's choices. You have plenty of choices. If you don't like the choice of brick and mortar because the rules that are in place, by all means, choose one of our other platforms. We've got them for you. They're being taught by certified Indian River teachers that have been working here for years. If you don't like either of those platforms, I'm truly sorry that you don't. We worked really hard to make really great platforms. But you have a choice. You can choose another county. You could go to Martin County, where 292 babies have already been quarantined and removed from school. 14 mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles have also been removed from the schools, and now they're closed in less than a week. I thank the board and Dr. Moore and his staff for all the work we've done. Nobody can predict the future, but we sure have tried, and we're not done trying yet, I'm sure. You guys have a great night.
Thank you. Ms. Maddox will read the emails that were received.
How many emails are there, Ms. Dr. Schiff?
I don't know.
Total?
I don't know until.
11?
11.
Thank you.
One moment. Okay, these are the emails that we received in our public comment inbox before noon today. This one is from Katie Hall. I am 100% against mandating masks for children in schools. This one is from Rick Allen. I'm a parent of a school-aged child here in Indian River School District. I do not support mandatory masks in order for children to physically attend school. I am very concerned about oxygen as a direct result. I'm very concerned about oxygen deprivation as a direct result of being forced to wear a mask in school for long periods of time. Additionally, this brings the issue of increased exposure to bacteria as well as other ailments such as skin irritations. I do not support mandatory masks in order for children to physically attend school. This is from Gladys Benitez. Hello, I'm completely against mandatory masks for school children. Did you think about the great burden on school teachers trying to control children who will touch and move the mask because it is uncomfortable and harder to breathe like we normally do? Adults do it, and do you really think that children are going to easily submit to such aggravating assault on their right to use something on their own faces?
Those little hands will touch their uncomfortable masks many times during the school day, and that will contaminate the masks with hand bacteria, not virus, that will cause such things as dermatitis. I have no idea what that word is. I'm not sure if it's a typo, if I don't know the medical term, and worsening acne on teenagers. Also, it will increase the chances of acquiring all types of colds and flus because of increased bacteria coming from contaminated hands. As far as I know, the COVID-19 cases are increasing in Florida because more people are taking the tests. However, the mortality rate is very low. Mandatory masks are going to increase the likelihood of children being sick, put on a greater burden on teachers, and even emotionally affect the children because of stress while trying to comply with mandatory masks. So I do not support mandatory masks, and if some teacher is afraid to get the COVID-19, he or she should stay home and do only internet teaching or quit teaching. This is from Don Wilkerson. Good morning. As a concerned citizen who wants to best figure out how to navigate COVID, I strongly agree with requiring students at our schools to wear masks. As we find out more about this virus, we've seen how it is not as bad as previously thought. There is just as much science and data, if not more, to prove the health risks of requiring kids to wear masks. The psychological impact worries me just as much. I know several kids who have become isolated during this COVID pandemic and have even become suicidal. The masks also cause anxiety and division among our children. There's a 0.02% death rate. This does not warrant an emergency, thus does not allow for an abuse of power to enact emergency orders mandating quarantine or PPE. Cloth masks don't even stop a virus. Please allow for self-governing. If one feels safer with a mask, allow respectfully that they wear one. Do not impose that on our children. Thank you. This is from Brooke Sullivan. I, as a parent of an IRC school student, am immensely against the requirement of masks to restart school. The options were created so that students with suppressed or compromised immune systems or family members with such could choose option 2 or 3, and the healthy students could return to school unmasked. It is unfair to require this of children when it is proven that they are not the spreaders of COVID. I implore you to rethink this decision. This email is from Jennifer Pippin. Good evening. Our country doesn't have a mask mandate. Our state doesn't have a mask mandate. Our county doesn't have a mask mandate. Our cities in Indian River County don't have a mask mandate. The CDC doesn't mandate masks to reopen. The state of Florida doesn't mandate masks to reopen. But many people look past this, and I don't understand why. The people who are wearing masks, wearing gloves, wearing eye protection, the people who are staying home, that's their choice and their rights as Americans. The people who cannot wear masks or choose not to wear masks, whether it's their personal choice or know that it provides no virus protection, have the right to not mask their children. At first, it was only on the buses where they weren't able to social distance students, and now it's going to be most of the day in many cases, and most parents I've spoken to are not okay with that. Option 2 and 3 are for those parents that have children with immune suppression, parents who are immune suppressed, or grandparents who are immune suppressed, or just scared of the virus, period. Maybe even the ones that don't want to have to deal with the virus in the school opening period. The ones who are healthy and not immune suppressed, or any underlying health conditions, that's option 1. Option 1 is the choice for those children and families. Well, what about the teachers and staff and the children who aren't wearing masks? We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want anyone to pass. Wouldn't we mask our children without a shadow of a doubt if we thought that was the case? Absolutely. The fact that they don't work for virus protection and the children breathing in their own bacteria and germs for any length of time angers me. The fact that they are not breathing normal oxygen and letting their immune systems build up like Mother Nature intended bothers me. The teachers and staff who are immune suppressed or scared or whatever personal reason they may have can use PPE for themselves. Personal protective equipment, shields, masks, social distancing, or whatever they would like to do to help them stay safe. I would never do any being to put my children in harm's way, or other children or our teachers and staff for that matter. Essential workers have been working since March 2020, and our teachers and staff for the most part have been virtual. Testing is inaccurate. Numbers are inaccurate. If our numbers are correct in Indian River County, they are declining. The deaths are declining. Hospitalizations are declining. Herd immunity is happening. We don't do this for influenza, rhinovirus, norovirus, bird flu, swine flu, or viral pneumonia, or any other virus, but we do this now. Makes no sense for less than 1% of the county. All of the people who have passed away in Indian River County had pre-existing conditions, some including cancer, end-stage renal disease, hypertension, heart disease, high blood pressure. Again, no one wants anyone to die, but the fact is people die. This is from Jamie Gusef. As you are aware, there are many parents who do not want their children to wear masks to school. When choosing option 1, the mandate for masks were not included in this. We were told it was only for bus riders. Why were parents not able to vote for this mask mandate you decided on? The children will be more concerned with the ability to not breathe as they are used to then learning. I, for one, wouldn't be able to sit with a mask on for an hour, 30 minutes per period and be able to focus. The younger children who are required to wear one all day is truly unacceptable. We are being told then can go to a corner to have a timeout to take their masks off. They are too young to understand and have patience to wear a mask all day. I urge you to look at the mask mandate and ask parents what they want for their children. I would like to be able to choose what my child is required to do. I did not want my child to do virtual school. We have the right, the education in a school setting. I am speaking on behalf of many parents with children attending Indian River County schools. This is from Chris Benitez. Hello, as a parent, we decided to have our child start school using IRC online, not because of COVID-19, but because the school is infringing on my son's safety by forcing him to wear a mask. Kids will never wear a mask properly, and their growing bodies need as much oxygen they can get. My child plays a lot and sometimes comes back very sweaty. So you're telling me that having my child wear a mask while being sweaty or having to put one on after playing is good for him? I am against the school district hurting my son by making him wear a mask at any point during the day. Listen to the parents who have children at the school and vote no on mandatory masks at school. This is from Brooke Sullivan. I am emailing as a concerned parent. It is my understanding that the students will only be forced to wear a mask when social distancing isn't possible, and that the end goal is to have masks be voluntary. What would constitute a spike, and what thresholds are looking to stay under to unmask our children? My other concern is who will be acting as a mask monitor. Are we imposing that duty onto the teachers amongst all their other duties? Will anyone be keeping track of lost instruction time due to having to address the mask situations? I was under the impression in the beginning masks were only to mandated on the buses and in the hallways, and last minute it was slipped in that it is now when social distancing cannot take place. That is not mandates in the state's opening guidelines, nor the CDC. We all want to keep our children and staff safe, but at what cost to their psyche are we willing to do so? We are well below the threshold for these mandates, and there is so much information out there that proves these masks don't work. Please don't force our children to wear these muzzles for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. This is from Sarat Zeng. To whom this may concern, please vote no on mandatory masks. To make these children wear a mask all day is an impossible task. No medical intervention should be mandatory by the government. Your job is to protect our rights, and our job is to protect our health. Stop the government overreach, make it an option. And that is all of the emails that we received.
Thank you. Any board members wish to respond?
Yeah, Dr. Schiff, I feel like we do need to talk about masks, and perhaps not in the context that people would like me to talk about them. I'm concerned today, and I reached out to district leadership and did not receive information back, and I'm hoping that they can share it now, because there was something that was shared on our website and on social media that said that all masks need to be aligned with the Student Code of Conduct. And in reviewing the Student Code of Conduct and going back to the revision that we made regarding what's allowed and isn't allowed on masks, I have a concern, because I do feel like honestly, we said we were going to take temperatures, and then we weren't taking temperatures. And then we said, masks were on buses. So from my perspective as a school board member, I'm aware of the union negotiations that are going on and the work at the district, and it's been amazing, the amount of collaboration and planning that we have seen and dedication to students that we have seen has been really heartening for me as a parent. I want to keep our teachers safe, and I want to keep our kids safe. And I have a very good friend who was in the hospital for 14 days, 6 days in the ICU, was perfectly healthy, and ended up almost needing to go on a ventilator. So when you have a personal experience, as I know some people in our district have, with a family member that becomes ill or dies, I'm sure it does change your perspective to a certain degree. Perhaps not everyone in this room, but I think it does. It did change mine a bit, because it was, wow, this is someone around my age who got very, very sick. So, was my position on masks kind of like let everybody do their own thing? It is, and it still is to a certain degree, but when I go out of respect for other people, I would wear a mask right now, and I'm having my children wear a mask. And that's my choice as a family. It's just as it's my choice to send my child back to school. Or my children back to school, which I am doing. I don't like masks. I don't like wearing them. I understand that certain people have medical reasons for not being able to wear them, and I respect that. And I understand what you're saying, and I may have a little bit more personal experience with what you're talking about than you may realize in our family. So I understand your concern. So on that issue, there isn't a vote. We haven't had a vote. There's been no vote. There's been work with the district, and if Dr. Moore can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, there's been work within the district and working with the union, the teachers union, and district staff, and there have been decisions that have been made, but at no time was this brought before the board to say, are we mandating masks, are we not mandating masks? We haven't as a body made that decision. While other communities or other groups within the community have had that brought before them and have chosen to not make that decision. It's not an action item on our agenda tonight. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. I really don't. So I'm going to return to where I started with this, which is what can be on masks and what can't. And it was said to me that, we had some issue with political things being put on masks. And there was a concern about that, and if it would cause, division within the school. And, I hesitated in approving the revisions to the Code of Conduct, because when I go back to where we say what's allowed and isn't allowed, and even in the dress code part, you have to go back to the bullying, harassment, cyberbullying, sexual cyberbullying, blah, blah, to see what is and isn't allowed as far as graphics or words. So it was said to me, well, what can you wear on your mask? And I said, well, I don't know. And it felt like the T-shirts again. If anyone was here for what can kids wear to school with T-shirts? Well, parents have bought masks already. Some parents have invested in buying masks. And so once again, right before school, we're saying to parents, wait a second, the masks you bought may not be the masks we're going to allow. And I'm just going to be honest, on the inside, there are so many moving parts to this within the district, and there is so much mutual respect that's happening between the union and the CWA and Dr. Moore and district leadership, that our community should be very proud about that part, because it hasn't always been the case. But I'm going to be honest with you. You have an IRCEA mask on right now. I have a concern about that. That, to me, is political. The IRCEA pays dues to the FEA. The FEA is suing our governor. So for me, it bothers me. So if we're not going to allow Trump 2020 or Black Lives Matter or Biden 2020 or whatever on masks, then we can't allow that, in my opinion. And I have expressed that to district leadership. School district logos, patterns, solid colors, I get it. We're going to ask parents to work with us here. Hopefully they have some masks. We're going to be supplying masks to children, so if you've bought masks that have graphics on them, I apologize. And hopefully they'll be able to wear them outside of the classroom. But again, this isn't up for a vote tonight. I've heard what everyone has said, and I continue to, I'm not an easy board member in the way that I don't question or challenge what's happening. So I'm going to ask you, Dr. Moore, what is your stance as far as graphics and logos? And I'm going to also ask that you be respectful of parents. When we say align with the dress code, let's make sure that we're actually aligning things with the dress code, because I have a concern in this situation that we're not.
Through the chair, oops, or no. Wish Brandon was here. Through the chair, we will adhere to the code of conduct. I think the information that we were pushing out, and which we will need to clarify and provide additional information, is to ensure, as there masks are coming into play, and we have had significant overhaul in the code of conduct, that we are adhering to the code of conduct. In no way, shape, form, or fashion are we trying to impede on anyone's First Amendment rights. Just trying to highlight the alignment of the dress code, which is board policy, which was drastically shift over the summer. That was a attempt to ensure that there was an alignment. So by no means are we trying to do anything other than the fact of ensuring that we're spreading information regarding the shifts in the code of conduct and ensuring that masks are adhering to that code of conduct. So we will be pushing out additional information.
So you just said drastic shift, and that really, really concerns me. And I was one of the votes that approved the changes. And I was fine with saying that the Confederate flag was a divisive symbol, and I felt that a lot of our students didn't have any connection to it other than it being something that was affecting the value of their education at the school. And we had many students come and speak about it, and it was a bigger problem than I realized. It's probably a bigger problem than a lot of people in our community realize, some of the racial issues in our schools that we as adults need to really pay attention to. But in this situation, when you're on the upside of the vote, you can bring it back. And I think we need clarification at this point because this drastic shift may have overstepped in what we are saying we are allowing or not allowing in the swastika. Okay, I'll sit here and say, don't wear the swastika. We're not going to allow it in our school. And I did say the Confederate flag. We're not going to allow it in our school. But, you know, when we start blanket statement, you know, we're not allowing things, I think we need to be very specific. If we're going to be specific about some things, we need to be specific about others. And if I need to bring this back as an action item, you know, and I don't do this out of disrespect to the district at all, but just out of trying to be a good representative of our citizens. And I don't know if any other board members have anything to say about that, but I'd love to hear your comments about it.
I'll open to other board members if you want to respond to citizen input or Mrs. Justice.
She want to respond?
Mrs. Rosario, are we still doing comment on here? Because I'm not seeing the comments on here, but go ahead. Mrs. Rosario?
Yes?
Did you have a,
Yeah.
did you want to speak to that?
Are we speaking about masks in general, or are we speaking about logos and letterings or anything on the masks? Which is it?
The conversation was opened in response to citizen input. Mrs. Justice brought up the issue with the student code of conduct. So,
No. With regard to the student code of conduct and students wearing masks, I do believe that the mask should be plain. If it's cloth, I believe it should be a solid color. Just to avoid any issues, I don't believe that we should have any kind of lettering or words or symbols, so long as, I mean, we did say that we, in our code of conduct, would not have anything reflecting on even students' shirts, lapels, little symbols on the side of the shirt have to be a certain size so that we could avoid, I don't even have the code of conduct in front of me, so I can't even quote it exactly, but I would prefer that it would be empty, plain, simple, mask, no conflict. Let's leave it at that.
yeah, I think we're not actually voting on the code of conduct today. That's a item that Mrs. Justice said she might bring forward as an action item. So
The thought, I know, and the question was, what did I think about the masks with regards to this conversation? And that's what I think.
okay, thank you. Mrs. Barenboim?
Sure. So several comments were made that I wrote down. One was, I doubt you reviewed all the research on masks. You won't believe how much research I have done. I am a researcher. My background is science. So this is very, very frustrating for me because there's so much research out there that is conflicting. And you can't trust some of it. You can't trust a lot of it. And that's why this is a very difficult seat to sit in right now. No one can predict the future. I heard that very loud and clear. This is a pandemic. This is different. This is unusual. This isn't the flu. This isn't H1N1. This is unknown still, even though there's lots of research already started on it, it's still unknown. And somebody was mentioning Florida law. Yeah, I pay attention to that too, very, very closely. So yes, no one wants to break the law. No one wants to go out on a limb. We do want to base this on facts, not fear. And I am not a huge proponent of mandatory mask requirement. However, I will say a couple of things. I base information on science. That's my thought, is we got to look and see what can we trust, what can't we trust. It's really hard to trust right now. It really is, because every time you read something, somebody else gives you something else. Even though we heard many people speak tonight about no masks, I've heard many more speak about please wear masks. So even though you saw just people here saying no masks and masks are the signs, there are many more people on the other side saying the other side of things. So all this conflict is what America's about right now. It's just about conflict like crazy. I'm looking at three things. First of all, I'm looking at the rate of positive rate that's going down. It is. It's 3% right now. It changes daily. That's part of why this is all popping up, because it wasn't, we had different scenarios we were working with a month ago, a week ago, a couple days ago, yesterday. And so this is changing constantly. So you might say, why is this coming up now? Well, you know what? Something else different will come up tomorrow, because that's how a pandemic works. You don't know. There's lots of things being thrown at us constantly. Decisions are based on safety and health, and that's what I go with. But this has been found to be highly contagious. I know of a person too, probably the same person. And this is a person I'm sure is not interested in wearing masks, but made the comment that I was too close to somebody for a seriously long period of time. I know of another person, same thing, had lunch with somebody, and all of a sudden there was an infection that spread in a group. So obviously there's something to this. Even though I don't condone the mandatory wearing of masks, I do believe in following rules. And when stores require masks because they're businesses and they have the right to choose what they do as a business, I respect their rule or I don't go in. When I'm within 6 feet of others, I comply because I've read what it says about when you speak, how far spit goes. Be real blunt about that. In restaurants, I wear it until I'm seated. That's the rule. If you're going to another state, it's very, very interesting. Some states, you have to wear it until you've ordered your food or till your food arrives. Some states, they have signs on the door that says, enter at your own risk. It's very interesting. But school's a requirement for children. They don't choose. Their parents and their guardians choose what they do. So they're in our care. We're responsible for guarding for their safety. How do we do that? We follow three things. 1, CDC guidelines. 2, the American Academy of Pediatrics. And 3, our local health department. Although their information is very, very interesting at times, because if you look at how things are coded, I question how deaths are coded. I question how people are coded about positive results. I question when somebody goes and gets a test done and they didn't actually have the test, but yet they get a positive test in the mail 2 weeks later. So it's really difficult. There's no clear answer here. So what we have to do is we have to go and trust the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics. We have to stay within those limits to be able to open schools. There are some people that don't want us to open schools at all because it's going to cause a huge wave of more of the problem that we're already dealing with. But we've offered, I think, a good plan. We have 3 options for parents. We have those same options for our employees. At least I know more for our teachers than our employees, our staff. I was worried, and I've been questioning this over and over again, I was worried whether or not teachers would have the option to choose what they wanted. And I'm finding the opposite, actually. I'm finding more of them want to come back to brick and mortar than want to actually teach virtually. We've actually had to ask people to convince them to teach more virtually in order to help with that option. So yesterday I visited 10 campuses because I think as a board member we should be on those campuses. We should be seeing what's happening. We should not be afraid to walk through the same halls in the same classrooms that we're asking our employees and our kids to do. We should be coming to these meetings and understanding that we are having to do what they're doing. And so if we're going to ask kids to come to school and do these rules, I want to make sure that we're doing what we should do, following the CDC guidelines and the American Academy of Pediatrics, which, by the way, changes all the time. So this one was on the 11th. This is the newest that's come out from the CDC. And this is on the 13th. This is the newest that's come out from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I do read these because I know that's what he does. And so I question him, don't I, constantly, as of today.
Through the chair, yes.
As of, I don't know, 2 hours ago, calling you about, are we following these recommendations? Because that's our job as board members, is to do the check and balance on the superintendent. So when I visited those 10 schools yesterday, I did call him in the middle of the day with a couple of concerns I had. And I looked for signage. I looked for social distancing. I looked for if there was plexiglass, where was it? Was it appropriate? Is it going to be cleaned all the time? Are we following all the rules that these guys are telling us to follow? I looked for computer availability. Yeah, we're pulling computers out so that kids can have them in their homes, but our kids that are coming to brick and mortar are having computers available to them too. I want fair to be fair. I looked at cafeteria configurations. Kudos to our principals for coming up with some very unique ideas. Very unique. Other than just painter's tape everywhere, we've got little logos going on. We've got stages being used. We've got music rooms being used. We've got places you don't want kids to eat being used normally, but I understand it. I get it. And what they're doing to try to clean those places, I saw it happening. So I was really happy to see that. I looked at hallway movement. How are kids going to be moving? How can we cut down the amount of time kids are going to have to wear masks? That was a question I had over and over and over again. I had that question for principals. I had that question I asked teachers. I had that question for Dr. Moore. Because I don't like wearing a mask. I'm not wearing the mask right now because I'm socially distanced. But when I walked in here, I wore the mask. Because I know that if I speak to somebody, yes, that can project. And I certainly don't want to be the reason why somebody else gets sick. So I respect that part of it. Do I believe all the research I read? But this is what we have to go on. We have to, because of what I have learned as a board member, we have to trust the CDC recommendations and we have to trust the American Academy of Pediatrics. And when I read this, it says masks, when you cannot socially distance. That's what it says. And so because it says that, that's what the recommendation is. Now, do I think kids should spend all day in a mask? Absolutely not. Do I think they need time to be able to get away from that as much as possible? Absolutely. And so do the teachers and the staff members. So that is the hardest part, I think. And that's what I asked over and over again, is if a kid's sitting in this classroom right now, are they socially distanced so that they don't have to wear a mask? Some of the schools, absolutely. Some of the classrooms, absolutely not. Because there's so many kids coming back to brick and mortar. So, Dr. Moore, I'm sure you're going to speak on this, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
Dr. Schiffer, you want to speak?
Briefly, yeah.
I had something I wanted to add when you're done.
Yeah, I think I'll speak briefly because I don't, this was not actually on our agenda tonight. It's been raised as an issue of public concern. It's worth addressing, but it's not actually what we're here to talk about tonight. That said, as Mrs. Barenborg mentioned, for as many people who are here tonight speaking against masks, I know we all received, I've probably gotten 20 or 30 emails in the last 2 days speaking in favor of masks. So those people are not here tonight, but their voices have equally come to us through email over the last couple of days. As Mrs. Barenborg says, it's not an easy issue. What I am aware of, and as a board member, like other board members have spoken to, I also have spoken innumerable times to Dr. Moore about this. And what I am aware of is the number of conversations that have been had with the health department and with doctors and with parents and with teachers and with the union. And what's emerging from that also is that I'm also aware that while evidence is conflicting, it is clear that in the states that are consistently wearing masks, the numbers are going down. So when we talk about numbers going down to 3% here, a large part of that is because we have been wearing masks more. Or I will say that at least in my experience when I am out, I see that more, and I see while we are not mandating it, there is more and more attention to it. That said, I'm not a doctor, I am not an epidemiologist, I am not an infectious disease specialist, so I'm not going to pretend that I am, and I'm not going to speak to that. I'm going to follow the recommendations of others. What I'm also aware of is that what has happened in our district, as we paid so much attention to this, is that now other districts are actually looking to us for leadership. Other districts are looking to us for how to do this. Other unions are looking to our unions for how to work well with their districts to create agreements that work for teachers and for staff, and through them also for children. And we're becoming a model in Florida for much of this. And I think it's because of the attention we're paying to the difficulty of these issues. I heard something recently that was an interesting comment, and I can't speak to it, to the virus, but when I hear the comparison between COVID-19 to H1N1, I saw something recently that suggested a better comparison was COVID-19 to polio, because we don't actually know the long-term effects. We don't actually know. We've not been dealing with this. We know that it's genetically different than other flus. What we don't know is the long-term effects. And for me personally, I will always want to err on the side of caution. I will always want to err on the side of what has me protect others to the best of my ability, what has me, if God forbid I were infected, and if there were the remotest possibility that my wearing a mask could in any way stop anybody else from getting infected, I would want to wear a mask. So that said, it is true that this did not come to a vote. If it comes to a vote, it'll have to be brought to the board at some future date as an action item, and we can discuss it then, and we can vote on it then. For now, it's the policy we have, and we're opening schools in a matter of days. And I trust that we have done everything possible that everything we can possibly do to make sure we are doing that as safely and as responsibly as possible. So Dr. Moore, I think, Mrs. Justice, and then Dr. Moore, you wanted some comments?
May I, Dr. Moore, for a moment? Thank you, sir. I just want to correct you on one thing. It wouldn't have to be brought at a later date. If a board member wants to bring an action item in the middle of the meeting, you can do that. So if one of us wanted to bring this up right now as an action item, we could. I just want to be clear about that because it's important that you know that. Before I ran for school board, I think I probably would have been very, very upset that my child was going to have to wear a mask at school. Honestly, it would really bother me. I have one child that is suffering from some sensory issues with it, and it is going to be challenging. And I don't know what decisions we're going to have to make in the future. So I understand, young lady, how you feel to a certain extent, not personally, but with my child. The other thing I've learned about public education is that it is absolutely an essential service. And I heard Dr. Redfield speak at a House committee. He's the director of the CDC, and he said this issue about reopening schools is not a public health issue versus an economic issue. This is a public health issue versus a public health issue. And in my opinion right now, it is so incredibly important for the future of the United States of America, this state and this county, to reopen public schools. Every day we stay closed, that means that there may be some children who are not able to access virtual education in the same way that other students might be able to, and there will be learning deficits, and there are already learning deficits that will be compounded. So I'm making the best decision that I can as a mom and as a school board member to try to keep our teachers safe and happy to a certain degree, because I heard some concern about teachers being worried about masks, and overwhelmingly from teachers I've heard they're not concerned about, and Mrs. Freeland may be able to speak to that, but I've not had a teacher say to me, that's not true. Overwhelmingly, teachers have said to me, we're okay with kids wearing masks and policing that. And that's been kind of the position. So I sit here today not bringing it as an action item because my appreciation for public education brings me to a point where I know that we must open schools and we must do everything possible to do that right now. And that's what I'm willing to do. Dr. Moore.
Actually, Mrs. Rosario had a comment, and then I'll go to Dr. Moore for closing comments. Mrs. Rosario?
Hi. Yes, thank you. I want to apologize for before because the audio it's coming in and out. So when Mrs. Justice was speaking at first, really all I was listening to was the tail end about, the graphics on the mask. But so I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Schiff, for allowing me to just follow up on my original comment. I have shared over the last several weeks my concerns over the masks for elementary school children specifically. My personal concerns have not very well been for the middle schoolers or the high schoolers, because I think that for the most part, they may be able to keep the mask on a little bit longer. And it's the little kids, it's the fidgeters, it's the kids who, sneeze and don't really understand how to catch the sneeze when they have the mask on or to remove it. And then cleanliness becomes an issue. And of course, children with ADD, ADHD. And I know that Dr. Moore has and his team have played very close attention to this within our reopening plan. So I want to thank them for ensuring as much as possible that children will need to wear the mask if social distancing is not in place. So I think Mrs. Barenborg mentioned it in her comment, if I heard correctly, and I'd like to just reiterate that social distancing is really the key. When there's social distancing, no mask needs to be on. Right. When there isn't social distancing, or when that possibility is not around, then we're requesting that mask be worn for everybody's safety. But just like many of the board members said, I too have received as equal amount, maybe even more emails from people requesting for us to keep this as a mandate than, those who have said, please don't, please remove this mask mandate. It's just very concerning. I don't know if we're going to make everybody happy all of the time. And it's unfortunate that we're in this situation. But I do know that I hope that under Dr. Moore's leadership, that principals and assistant principals will, and teachers will give children an opportunity to identify those kids who are having issues in their classroom with the masks, not to be as stringent, to be flexible, to be caring enough to give them space to not put the mask on if there's going to potentially be an issue. I don't want us to deal with issues just because of a mask. I think we have enough love and care, and professionalism in our schools that we could do that. We can have the leniency in there, that it doesn't have to necessarily be so strict, and yet, still be keep everybody safe. So again, I just wanted the opportunity to reiterate my concern was for elementary school, and it still is for elementary school students. But I suppose moving forward, I just appreciate the community's concerns on this issue.
Thank you. Dr. Moore?
Through the chair, thank you. And first, thank you to the individuals who came out, who sent emails in, as well as those who came and speak. We appreciate you taking the time to come out and share your concerns. I want to just share a little additional information as it relates to the work this district has done and the proactive approach which we have taken. As you know, board members, tonight is a special board meeting. The only reason that we are here is to approve the African American Achievement Plan. A week ago, I believe it was a week ago, we approved the reopening of school plan, which was discussed at length during our workshop as well as the board meeting. 2 weeks prior to that, we discussed the reopening, which was the initial plan, and we scheduled the meeting knowing, meeting we had 2 weeks ago, knowing that, as Ms. Barenborg noted, that there would be shifts and changes as recommendation changes. So prior to those two conversations as it relates to the opening of schools plan, and you're right, we've had the opportunity to share that plan with a number of other districts and are doing some trend-setting work as it relates to reopening under the confines of COVID. Prior to that work, there were 11 different task force meetings, which is opportunities to work with teachers, to work with parents, to work with principals, administrators, and community members on how we open schools and ensure that we're providing meaningful instructional environments to all students. We've had opportunities, ongoing opportunities, to sit with pediatricians, walk through what our thoughts were, what the research said to create this reopening plan. We've met with the health department on a weekly basis to problem solve, to ensure what we are doing is in the best interest of all members of our community within the school. We have extensively looked at the research. We've extensively had conversations from a state perspective with all superintendents regarding how schools should be open, connected with other medical professionals to create a plan that ensures that we're being in the best interest of children. We have taken every step necessary from the options that we have created, from pushing back schools to ensure that we had 3 solid weeks to create a plan that not only was safe and secure, but ensured meaningful instruction took place within each of those 3 models. We continue to be flexible where other districts said, nope, the deadline is passed. Sorry, you changed your mind, you have to wait. We continued to be flexible. We continue to look at the realities and work with our unions and add or modify our MOUs that we've established. First district in the state to have an MOU as it relates to procedures in COVID. We're one of the only districts that are allowing those who have accommodations to stay in a safe place. We are one of the only districts that are using our practice, which is masks when social distancing is not available. I have had the opportunity to visit almost all of our schools. By the end of tomorrow, I will be at all of our schools, and I can just validate what Ms. Berenborg was saying, the creative and innovative thinking at school sites to provide opportunities to ensure students are socially distanced, have a mask safe space, have a mask pass, to create those opportunities. Like I was like, please let me speak because I want to take my mask off. We understand it, and we have been extremely flexible. At the heart of this work are students. And Ms. Justice referred to it. As adults, we are all going to get through COVID. It will be inconvenience at times. Some of us or some of our spouses may lose a job for an extended amount of time, but we will recover. A learning loss is a compounded loss that will impact a child for the rest of his life. We cannot allow that to happen. It's already happened. If I come back and I am 6 months to a year behind, next year I'll be 2 years behind. I'll miss the opportunity to be in Algebra 1 in 8th grade. I'll miss the opportunity to be in honors classes. I'll miss the opportunity to go to college or receive the scholarship. This team, in partnership with the district, with the unions, has created a plan to ensure our students aren't experiencing that learning loss. And we're designed in a way to circumvent the learning loss that has already taken place. We are our own public entity, and we have created a plan that is flexible, more flexible than any other plan that I have read. And I want to say I've read at least half of the other districts' plans in looking at that is easy for adults, but not best by kids. We have constantly surveyed and connected and circled back with those who are doing this work, those who stand at the front line, which are our educators. I have sent surveys home, confidential surveys at the end of each of the first 2 weeks. Hey, where are we at? What are we doing well? What information do you continue to need from me so I can ensure you have what you need as your teacher? And we learned. We made changes. We pushed out additional information. We continue, as I am in school, circling back, having conversations, intimate conversations. Where are we? How do you feel with what we have created? The PPE, we have provided shields to every single employee in this district. We have shields available to our students through our principals when that accommodation needs to be given. Continue to be flexible within the 3 options. We have set the stage in terms of creating our own district response team, in which we are facilitating the collection of information to quickly work with the health department to rapidly make decisions on when and if we need to quarantine. Health department just, we will be pushing out information tomorrow where employees in our district, as well as students who attend our schools, will have opportunities to have a rapid test through the health department, identification of a positive or non-positive COVID case, 15 minutes to 2 hours. So this has been extremely hard and complex work. And there are thoughts and opinions on both sides of the issues. But in terms of doing what is in the best interest of children, I think the plan that this board has approved does in fact allow for a great deal of flexibility to meet the needs of all families within our particular district, with a commitment to this board and a commitment to this community that we will continue to be flexible. And as I walk schools and as I receive the same emails as all of you receive, I continue to be encouraged with where we are at in our response and our unwavering commitment to evaluate what we have created in terms of a brand new reality as to how you teach and educate in COVID. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Will there be modifications? Absolutely, there will be. Will every single principal in this district be circling back with their leadership teams at the end of the first day to say what went well, what do we need to modify, what did online instruction look like in classrooms, are we meeting the needs of our level 1s and level 2 students who are not physically in a classroom with teachers? How do we shift? How do we modify? How do we get this right for our kids? Those are the systems that we have created. And we are looking forward to getting back to normal. I don't like the new normal. I don't like this. This is not what I signed up to be. We should be celebrating a return to work where we're kicking off schools with a 10-day unity week, celebrating us coming together in environments where every single child in that school feels welcomed, feels accepted, and feels embraced. That should be at the forefront of our conversation. The depth of instruction that we're providing for our students as it relates to each and every single one of their individual academic needs, that should be at the forefront of our conversation. When we approved this plan, there wasn't hours and hours and hours of debate and discourse. We have worked through individual problems with our teachers to create a sense of ownership and commitment to creating and implementing this particular plan. That is not the norm. That is not the norm. And I don't say that for any other reason other to simply state where we are as a system and as a district is significantly in a better place. The disputes, the fight, the disagreements with parents. Every parent in brick and mortar had the opportunity to walk in classrooms. In our elementary schools, participation was in the 90-95%. Students walking in with their parents, seeing the one-way hallway, seeing the social distancing, how to take a mask break. Same thing in our secondaries. Of course, in secondary, the attendance wasn't as well. And even after that experience, parents, if you wanted to make a change, we still honored that. We still honored that. We have a plan that has teachers wanting and saying, although I qualify for accommodations, I want to be in classrooms in brick and mortar. We had to go out and get additional teachers, as one of our board members referenced. Once again, not the norm. So concern is high. And as I state my level of confidence in the implementation and planning, there is still concern. It would be naive and in some ways ignorant not to have that concern. That concern continues to push me in looking at how we continue to do this work. So, board members, I know this is not an item that is on the agenda, but we continue to problem solve and look at our realities as we prepare for the opening of schools on Monday. We are right around the corner of opening our schools. We are in a very solid place. Classrooms are prepared. Orientations are taking place for our virtual models. We have really begun to, at a very deep level, have the conversations around quality instruction within each particular model. So we're looking forward to opening schools and continuing to move this work forward. Thank you.
I have a question.
I have a comment, too.
So what's helpful is on that, but Mrs. Justice, Mrs. Barrenborg.
Great. So tonight we heard a new parent to our district who hasn't been a part of the district before, so perhaps they aren't as familiar as a parent who's had children in the district about if something's happening at their child's school, if a child starts school and is having trouble with the mask. How does a parent, and right now with Mrs. Wilson, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Where do we go from here? How do we help this parent and this child to make the best decisions for your education, for her education, and also to make sure that she feels comfortable? And who should she speak with?
Through the chair, as a result of our reorganization, we have created an advocacy office, Mr. Seymour, which I believe you've already been in contact with. There are accommodations that we will be making for this particular case. I believe that work's already been taken. But just to highlight the opportunity, as we evaluate our own practice across our district, we have created our own advocacy office. We'll be pushing out information as we roll into the start of school next week, where Mr. Seymour will have the ability to problem solve with parents, connect them to the resources that they need when they're not getting the services or the quality of support we all know our children need. Above and beyond that, the first response is always the principal. The principals have been empowered in this system to solve problems. We want problems solved in this district as close to children as possible. A principal who knows your child has the ability to make a better decision than folks who are miles and miles away at the district. Yeah, I've been a principal of 3 different schools. I've supervised 102 schools, but I don't know the intimate needs of your child. The principals do, and we want to empower them to make those particular decisions.
Thank you. We're actually, I can't allow that. Sorry. Mrs. Barrenborg.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned a couple things, Dr. Moore. One was flexibility. And it's almost been a detriment is how flexible you have been. And I will tell you why. As I walked campuses yesterday, I heard over and over again about when are we going to have firm schedules. Teachers were saying that to me because we're still having people moving constantly back and forth between brick and mortar and virtual. And it's causing scheduling concerns. And I know, people worried, oh, well, are they going to lose their place? Or are they? So I know you've tried to put all the best plans in place, and that's what people don't realize is when you make one decision, it makes another decision change. So I appreciate the fact that you're being flexible, but I do know at some point we have to just say, we got to go. And then your communication improvements have been great. I had a lot of communication. People say, well, which one do I watch? Just like the CDC's recommendation, watch the last one. It's ever changing. And I have a question about the rapid tests, because I have heard about rapid testing results and how many false positives there are with rapid test results. Could you explain to us how we're going to be able to trust that?
Through the chair, that's why we haven't released the information to this point. What we have right now is this is a test, and I'll have the official name and notify everyone when it's available, for when you're displaying symptoms. So this would be a test that is extremely reliable when symptoms are being displayed. Now, if you're asymptomatic, this would not be the particular test that you have. So once we have all of that information detailed, we are defining the protocol on when you are symptomatic, as you know, through our opening of schools process. Once again, we're the district saying if you're symptomatic and you're an employee, we want you to stay home, and we'll cover the cost of that. And now we'll be able to get them to a place with that symptom they can be assessed and then return to work with the assurance that they do not have COVID-19.
Yeah, because I'm concerned about what I read in the paper about local school districts and what's happening there. The other thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention that when you walk on campuses, I didn't get to go on every campus yet, but out of those 10 campuses, I do have to highlight 2 campuses because kudos to Vero Beach High School. What they have put in place, I was kind of shocked by how much more they had thought of and done than, granted, it was my first visit, first thing in the morning, but I was impressed with what they had already thought of and put in place there. And I'm not sure if I'd like to eat in a gym for lunch, but, I get it that you have to do what you got to do. But the other one was Indian River Academy. The protocols and things that they've already put in place, I just have to mention those 2 schools because I was really impressed with what was going on in both of those schools. And when they couldn't get something that they needed, they went out and bought it on Amazon and used their own budget to do it because they weren't getting it from the district fast enough, and we'll have a conversation about that later.
Are there any other comments, or can we move on to?
I hope that there's clarification on the masks, on what's allowed, what isn't allowed going forward. I hope there's clarification on it. I hope if we say no words, then we say no words. And it's not some words are okay, some words aren't okay, we just say no words.
Well, and I think in the code of conduct, it doesn't say no words, it says no hate symbols. And we clarify what those are, not no words.
Right, and
Like,
it says
go
in line with
Noles.
the code of conduct, no words or graphics, and that's not true. In our code of conduct, we do allow graphics on high school students' t-shirts.
Yeah.
They can't be obscene, but we allow graphics.
Okay. Thank you to everybody who came out tonight. I'm going to move on to our action agenda, and I'm going to recognize Dr. Moore to present the item on our action agenda tonight.
Thank you. Through the chair, as you know, 2 weeks ago, we had the opportunity to present the African American Achievement Plan, which we are required, as a result of our joint plan, to approve prior to the opening of schools. We had a great deal of conversation and dialogue, and I thought it would be appropriate really to make some modifications, enhancements, add some substance to the plan prior to the board voting on that plan. I've had the opportunity to add that substance, seek additional feedback, make a few additional edits and corrections, and that is the plan that stands before you today.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Justice, do you want to speak to your motion?
I'm happy that we're here to approve this plan tonight. I'm going to be honest and say that at the last meeting that we had, one of the board members, when discussing some changes that would need to be made, offered, Dr. Schiff, you offered your help in making those changes. And I didn't address it then, but it makes me extremely uncomfortable that a board member would be so active in crafting policy. And that's just been my experience on the board. That it seems that we're here to approve it, and any feedback we give happens in this arena so that we can work together and be fair about that. But it did make me uncomfortable. I've asked how much input you've had on the strategic plan, on the African American Achievement Plan, because while I recognize this is your field, all board members should have the same ability to have the same opportunity to have feedback. And I'm comfortable with this plan as it going forward, because I believe, as was my concern initially, when I joined this district and attended African American Achievement Committee meetings, that there were not enough educators in the room making the plan for the students. And as a board member and as a mom, it really made me angry, because no matter what your race is, you deserve the same amount of attention and treatment and specialized care and from educators who are making the plan for your children. It doesn't matter if your children are black or white. And so I was happy through the time I've been here on this board that I see that the district has moved to being much more professional and taking this much more seriously, taking African American achievement and the achievement gap much more seriously. And I'm thankful for that. So I'm happy to approve the plan tonight. I'm thankful for Dr. Moore and his incredible team for working with the NAACP and the Equity Committee to build this plan. And I look forward to continued strides amongst our African American students in our schools. Thank you. Mrs. Brownbaugh?
Sure. I look forward to seeing what we're going to be able to do to achieve what we're saying we're going to do on this plan, so I look forward to that part. I thank you, Dr. Moore, for allowing more input on this and for understanding when people feel like they haven't been able to give the input that they need, that they deserve the right to do that. So I appreciate that as well. As to Mrs. Justice's point about board members, I did talk to the attorney about whether or not board members, because, you know, my expertise STEM, and would I love to be able to give free PD to the district and to the teachers? I would absolutely love to do that. Should I do it? No. And I clarified that with the attorney, because we are in the role to make sure that we are setting policy and approving policy, not making the policy, the nitty-gritty day-to-day. And so I think that's hard for us because we really want to roll up our sleeves and get in there and do it. Believe me, it's hard for me not to do that. But I totally respect it and understand it. And, you know, get frustrated by it as well. But having been now in this position for, I don't know, a while now, you tend to learn that sometimes you really want to be able to do more because you know about it, but, you know, you can't. And so I understand the frustration there.
Mrs. Rosario? Open to discussion. Mrs. Rosario, do you have any comments?
Thank you. It takes a second for me to unmute the mic. I am very happy that we're here. I'm looking forward to really just beginning the work, for the district to begin the work, to really dive into the plan, and for those involved who are responsible for each of those line items that are in there to really dig deep into the data and work on essentially getting it up and moving, because ultimately it's children who benefit from this. I do ask anyone who has not seen the plan now, the revised plan, to please take a look at it. It's near 300 pages. If not, I think a little bit more, but that's also including data. A lot of data has been added to that. And it is quite extensive. But nonetheless, I think it is a great plan. Last week I approved it, or rather I voted for it to be approved as it was. I believe that there were some concerns about it being functional, that some thought that it wasn't functional, and that's why we should not have approved it last week. With that said, I thought that it's functional, and that's why I thought that it was appropriate to move forward with it. I don't believe that Dr. Moore would have given it to us if it wasn't a working document. I see he's shaking his head, so. But it's okay. I mean, we are where we are now. I appreciate the allowing some extra time for the feedback. So my only concern with the plan is that it's too big. Oftentimes when you have something that's tremendous, the way that this plan is, it may become slightly overwhelming in ensuring that every item that we have in there is actually going to get done. I don't doubt that we won't be able to do that. I just think that sometimes when it's way too big, it might, some of the work might get missed in there, and I don't want us to get to that place. I actually didn't want us to get there, but we're here now. I do trust our team. We have an incredible, dedicated, administrative staff, leadership staff, our school staff, principals, assistant principals, teachers. They're going to dive into this. They're going to really work hard at leveling the educational experience for Black children with regard to equity in our district. And I know that it takes a long time to get here, but we're here now, and I'm just excited at what is ahead.
Thank you. So I am really pleased that this report is back to us. I want to commend all of the people who put a tremendous amount of work and effort and thought into the revision after revision after revision of this document in an effort to have it be as clear and as forward-moving and looking as possible. To address my fellow board members' concerns that I in some way overstepped my role as a board member, I want to be clear. What I did was my job. What I did was I reviewed a document that I would expect any board member to do. I didn't do that to any greater or lesser degree than any other board member had the opportunity to do. Did I read it carefully? Absolutely. Did I provide feedback? Absolutely. But providing feedback is different than professional development. I didn't provide professional development. Were I invited to do a training here, that would be professional development. Were there a document on STEM? I would hope that you would review it equally as carefully because that's an area in which you have expertise and I don't. So you might see things that I wouldn't see. But this wasn't professional development. This was reviewing a document very, very carefully. And I actually stand by that as my job. So to that end, there are things in this document that I think are terrific. There are things that I think really move us forward. There are things that I think are not there yet. And there are things that I think we can still refine, that I think we can still work towards, that I think we can still amend as we go forward. But right now, I think what's important is to get started on the work. And in order to get started on the work, we have to have a document. And because of that, I will absolutely support approving it tonight, and I will look forward to how we move forward in doing this work. And as we learn through the process and as we learn to where we've got it right and where we need to make corrections, we'll do that. And we'll do that moving forward. So for tonight, I thank everybody who had a hand in this work, and I thank you for all that you've done to move forward equity in this district, which is an area in which we have not historically done well, and I look forward under this administration to doing considerably better. On that note, I'll call for a vote unless there are any further comments.
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
You made a comment that you weren't providing PD, but speaking at the equity conference and doing that training, that is a training.
That wasn't a training.
Okay.
That was providing information, that wasn't a training.
But my point is, I think we shouldn't offer to write things, that's all. And I agree with Mrs. Justice on that part. Do I want to? Yes. Do I want to be part of the team and be rolling up my sleeves and helping with that sort of thing? Yes, I do. I just, and that's why I got frustrated. I wasn't asking the attorney about you, I was asking her about me. Can I do that? And I was told, no, we really shouldn't.
If you could, if you applied for a
Clear, I
job and
didn't
were
write the
hired.
document.
Yeah.
I reviewed the document, but I didn't write the document. There was no section of this document I actually wrote.
That's why I'm willing to approve
Right.
it tonight.
Right.
I didn't write it, I reviewed it
I
very
know,
carefully.
you made the comment that you were willing to write it. I think that's where
I
the
said I was
comment
willing to
was.
support
Okay.
whatever could be done to help promote the
Okay,
document
just go
forward.
back and watch.
But I didn't write the document.
Okay.
In any case, call for a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I take it that was a lag and that was an approval, not a. Thank you. 4-0. You want me to confirm that?
She did, you did.
Yeah. 4-0?
Yeah, you did.
And superintendent's closing. I'll recognize Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do need one piece of information from the board. As you know, our Equity Committee is convening tomorrow, and they're beginning the work on creating the process that they will use to evaluate our implementation or progress as it relates to the joint plan. I wasn't here last year, but as I review the joint plan, the board has the authority to delegate that responsibility of completing that report to the Equity Committee, or to complete that report in partnership together, very similar to how we've been meeting. So I need clarity. Are we to create that, the district team working with the Equity Committee to create that report in partnership to the courts? So as they prepare their process, they have that direction. We also are tentatively scheduling an opportunity for us to come together with the NAACP leadership and the Equity Committee, very similar to what we did last year, and that would be the second board meeting in October. So I just need clarity on are we delegating the response, or the ability of creating or evaluating the progress to the Equity Committee, or are we working in partnership in the creation of that report?
Thank you. Mrs. Justice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that collaboration is key. I think what we've seen is that when we work together, the work product is better, and we create better solutions to challenges, and we also create opportunities to work together, which means that we can have a brighter future. So I'm always going to vote for collaboration. It would be my opinion that we do work together to create that evaluation system.
Other comments? I agree. Personally, I think working in collaboration is always the best way forward. Moving to solve problems collaboratively is always better than adversarially.
Absolutely. So hearing consensus, I will work with the Equity Committee, with my team, and in all honesty, looking forward to digging into this work, as many of you have said, and bringing this to the forefront of the work that we do here in the School District of Indian River County. Super excited to get to work now that school is going to start again. I've said it a number of times. I've been a superintendent for going on 8 months now, with students only being in school for 44 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I am very, very, very excited. I do, in closing comments, I just wanted to acknowledge yesterday and the support that our community provided to the School District of Indian River County and our students. As you know, we had a millage that was put in front of the voters in the midst of a global pandemic, in the midst of financial insecurity and uncertainty, surrounding a bit of controversy as to when and how this item should go to the voters. And the end result was an increase of 13 percentage points in comparison to the previous year. The end result was 10,000 more voters coming and showing out, a 76.7% pass rate. And if you want to speak as to the level of confidence a community has with the volume of voters that showed up in this primary, in looking at that response rate of we support the School District of Indian River County by 76.7%, is amazing. What a point of accomplishment and celebration that our community stands behind the leadership of this board, the work being done at our school sites by that percent. So an absolutely outstanding day as it relates for this, and now it's time to focus in on those three areas and use those funds to continue to transform the education, to have transformational impact here in the School District of Indian River County. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe, do we have board member matters tonight? No. We do not. On that, we are adjourned at 7:43. Thank you all.
Thank you.